Well, hello, and welcome to a very overdue Soul Saturday dose of body, mind, medicine. And I want to speak today about what if instead of making yourself wrong, you start looking at what's right about you. I've had some incredible clients in over the last couple of days, and this topic about healing has been coming up in a way that I want to go back to the magic of the words that we're spelling into being, and how even healing can become a bit of an addiction if you are so hell-bent on healing. Hi, Melody. In a sense, what we're dreaming into being, or what we're thinking or bringing into being, is this idea that we're not whole and complete and perfectly imperfect, just the way that we are, and that healing is like something that we have to get to. And just speaking about words as well, when we look at self-sabotage and limiting beliefs and negative emotions, I think we need to be really aware of what the energy is behind the words, because in itself, none of it is conscious until we bring it into the conscious. This is all coming from a very subconscious aspect of who we're being. And I'm sure if you're anything like me, people have said to you, oh, you know what, you're just self-sabotaging. Why do you keep self-sabotaging? And what if that is just a complete and utter load of rubbish? I don't think any of us have ever woken up one day and thought, oh gosh, how can I screw up my life today? How can I really mess up my hopes and my dreams and stop myself from reaching my full potential? And I hope that you can sort of take this idea on with some humor. I think we need more joy. We need to laugh more at ourselves. We need to make ourselves, I always say, I'm willing to be the joke of my own reality, and know that I'm cute, not always bright, when I'm thinking from this thing. Hi, Dolly, nice to see you. So, I hope that you just take some time. We're in a black moon, so a lot of the shadow stuff is coming up in this new full moon. And I hope that you just bring in this idea of healing. Hi, Anjana. Where we're constantly going into making ourselves wrong, that, oh my gosh, there I go, I'm self-sabotaging my life, and just throw it out the window, because it's not only inaccurate, that way of describing something only serves to add more of that sort of unnecessary shame and blame and regret into something that's probably already hard enough. Hi, Lillian, lovely to see you. So the fastest way to sort of get out of the de-shaming of the self-sabotage or limiting beliefs is to really understand how you're wired in your nervous system. And no, none of it's your fault. It's just the bad training of this reality I call planet Earth that we're all committed to, and nobody knows it up until now. So just know that, this phenomenon of limiting beliefs and self-sabotage, it's actually all self-protection or self-defensive patterns that we've created, often pre-3-year-old, to keep ourselves safe when perhaps we didn't have the safety that we needed. And our nervous system is wired for survival, and survival alone. It doesn't care about creativity. It doesn't care about dreams and goals. All your nervous system is designed to do, and it does it really, really well, is to keep you safe and protected. And if you look up the definition of self-sabotage in the Webster Dictionary, it says that it is an act of deliberate subversion. And I kind of laughed at that too, because it's kind of crazy if you think about it. For you to make a deliberate choice about something, that has to come from this thinking part, the prefrontal part of the brain. But that prefrontal cortex, it's often hijacked. In fact, it's pretty much doing it all the time by the sort of subcortical parts of the nervous system, and the emotional and the reactional triggers that bring it into high gear. So subcortically and unconsciously, those responses are anything but deliberate. It's actually kind of crazy if you think about the way that we make meaning of things. And if we're just kind and we go into that sort of compassionate inquiry of how we're showing up in the world and how we're perhaps moving into the discomfort and leaning into the fear and asking ourselves, what's right about me today, can just calm down that parasympathetic part of the brain, because all of those automatic defenses that our body mind has in place from preconception actually are designed to keep you safe. And that's why it's so important, I think, anyway, to reframe, to re-language, right? To spell into being that self-sabotage, call it what it is. Your body's unconscious attempt to keep you safe and protected. That's it. So how you're wired isn't your fault. We all have a nervous system that's trying to keep us safe, and we also live what we learn. So if you came from an environment where you constantly saw your parents doing the same thing over and over again, my father was a third generation alcoholic. So how much of his conscious willpower to stop drinking was ingrained in him, not only from his intergenerational inherited trauma from his family line, but also from the fact that he was not feeling safe. He wasn't safe in his environment. And drinking was one of the ways that he coped with the situation. Back then, it wasn't cool for a man to say that they felt depressed or were anxious. So the next time that somebody or you think that you're self-sabotaging, we don't use that kind of languaging in our everyday life anyway. I encourage you to go deeper and look at, what are you feeling, or what do you feel that that you're feeling, that if you looked underneath the feeling of it, you'd know exactly how brilliant your body has been in keeping you out of harm's way, keeping you out of danger, keeping you safe and protected. And just be compassionate, love yourself and those child parts, right? The fragmented or dissociated parts of you that are actually running your life subconsciously at that point are doing so because there's a story or an attachment, right, in the pattern that's ready to be resolved. So it's time, this is the time to really break free with the Lionsgate portal coming up. This is really a beautiful opportunity again for us to come back to our hearts, be brave in our hearts, the lion heart, the core, the courage of the lion heart, and this beautiful Lionsgate energy that's coming in to set yourself free from that shame or blame or regret or guilt or making yourself wrong, all that self-judgment, so that you can take it off of your shoulders and just remember that in fact you've just got really, really good at staying alive, at staying safe and out of harm's way. And the goal is to make those unconscious defensive patterns conscious. And then when they're conscious, right, then you've identified it, then you can start working with them to rewire your nervous system and start to create new automatic responses in your body mind that are going to get you to a place where you can create a beautiful life. And I see this happening all the time when we start to trauma hack and we get really clear on some of these unconscious patterns that you designed brilliantly, pre-verbally most of the time, because this all sort of happened to us when we had these trauma patterns ingrained in our nervous system, pre-7-year-old. And then you can actually start looking at, okay, wow, how brilliant was I to set up that I have an anxious avoidant or an anxious ambivalent or an anxious disorganized style of attachment. I have a very disorganized attachment style. Once I knew what it was and why I was wired that way, I could start working in a way and bringing in support. Hi, Sajin. Bring in support in my business, in my life, to show me those aspects and parts of myself so that they could come online. And it's an amazing thing that happens when you start to go through this process of completion. So make sure that you're working each day Inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard is hard. So remember that, to bring your nervous system online. You don't want to flood it with so much information that it shuts you down again. But instead of going back into those unconscious patterns, thank your body. Thank your body for doing a great job, and you get to reparent. You get to grow up those fragmented child parts that are running those trauma patterns and causing chaos and havoc in your life from the awareness that up until now it's kept you safe and you no longer need them. So this is where the beauty begins, where you can start to feel free to release any of that sort of shame that you've been holding on to over this outdated idea of self-sabotage and limiting beliefs and negative emotion. All emotions are healthy, and instead you can just give yourself a big hug and thank your body, mind, and yourself for doing such a great job at surviving. You've got this. I know that it sounds sometimes impossible, but we're the dreamers. We're the crazy ones, the rebels, the troublemakers, the HSPs, the empaths that feel everything. And we're wanting to create a different world. And when we start to be able to see things differently, while other people call you crazy, it's all good. In fact, it's the people like the Steve Jobs and the brilliant creators in the world that had ADHD or OCD or were told they were never going to amount to anything, that are the geniuses. They're the ones that have created the most incredible artworks and technology and things in the world because they were crazy enough to think that they could change the world. And you are also, you're one of those people that are doing exactly the same. So the sooner you stop beating yourself up, you end this weight of judgment, and you start to get really, really curious about how you're wired, what your attachment style is, then you can actually see the parts and pieces that you need in order to upgrade your life to the next level, whether that's your business or your relationships or whatever it is. This is the time, this is the time, and you are the one that you've been waiting for. So thank you for joining me on a late Saturday afternoon. If nobody told you today, I see you, I honor you on your journey, and I send you so much love. So let me know what you're up to, what you're calling in on this new moon in Leo, as we open and move into this beautiful Lionsgate portal and these incredible creative energies. I'd love to know what you're up to, and if this resonates with you, please like it, share it, and let me know what you'd like me to speak to more of in the coming weeks. And just remember, be aware of what you're spelling into being, into physical actualization with your words, with your thoughts, with your feelings and your emotions. When it's in the quantum field, it's out there. And I think that the sooner that we start to do our inner work, when we work with the shadows, when we learn how we're wired to survive, and get into that next rung of Maslow's theory, which is where all the creation and all the juicy, beautiful connections happen, the sooner we get to create a world that we are dreaming into being. A world that's sustainable, where we treat others, whether they're human or non-human, with regard, and we become the sentience. We become the guardians and the stewards, rather than the destroyers, through all of this negative, limiting beliefs and negative emotions and all that other rubbish of self-sabotage. And you're playing your part in it, and for that I'm really, really grateful. So that's it. I'm waffling now. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.